I'm Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, and I'm your host today of Community Forum. And I have the great pleasure to introduce to you Scott Wolfman, who is the owner of Scott Wolfman Productions in Southbury. Welcome, Scott.
It's great to be here, Susan.
It's nice to have you. I have you on the show because you're what I call a serial entrepreneur. Not to be confused with other things, but meaning that you've developed and created sort of successive businesses. So I thought it might be helpful for you to give our audiences just a brief blurb on your background in terms of your education and how long you've been in the greater Danbury area and how you came to creating your first business, because we want to find out sort of what drives you and how you've made your businesses be successful.
Well, thanks. First of all, the first business that you speak of is Wolfman Productions.
I said Scott Wolfman.
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's Wolfman Productions. My last name is Wolfman. It's been sort of a fun surname to have. Surname's the last name, right? Surname
Yes.
to have, to be in this business. When I was in college, both as an undergrad and as a graduate student, I did a lot of programming at a couple of different colleges, one near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and one up in New Hampshire. So I booked a lot of entertainers, and I put on major concerts and brought in some major performing arts programs over the years. And I really loved the business. And when I got out of school, I moved to New York. This was in 1984, and I had a short-term job working for a satellite-delivered campus television network. And that job kind of never worked out for me so well, and so I bussed tables in New York for a while. But eventually I returned back to the college environment, and as I mentioned, I got my master's degree and worked in campus administration for a short while. And I just really gravitated more towards the entertainment side of the sort of business that I was in, although I enjoyed the educational mission as well of working in higher education.
I thought you were going to say maybe some of it is you didn't want to leave college. No.
Well, there's, if you're commenting on my Arrested Development, that's clear for all to see. But no, I enjoyed the environment. It's a very vibrant environment. But mostly, I really liked the entertainment business. You know, my father was a disc jockey for many years.
Oh, really?
So I really fond memories of going into the AM studio and picking out these great Apple record and Decca label record 45s off the wall.
Oh, wow.
And my father was quite a personality back in his day, and he's a great joke teller. And so I kind of always liked the biz, you know. So
yeah.
For me, I kind of wanted to have some involvement in that business. So I just decided that I should start my own booking agency. I didn't know anything about it. I had never been a booking agent before, but I had a bit of a Rolodex of entertainers that through the process of me hiring them at these various places, I got on the phone and said, hey, I'm thinking about starting this agency. And they're like, Scott, you're my agent. You know, you'd be perfect.
Really?
Yeah. So right out of the gate, I had a kind of a really interesting, weird assortment of speakers that I represented. This was about 20 years ago. Now get this is kind of a weird thing. I knew a couple of horror writers that grew up in my town. Horror writers. They grew up in my town of York, Pennsylvania. They were called the Splat Pack. And they wrote this really hard-edged sort of horror fiction that was called Splatterpunk. And Clive Barker and Stephen King said these guys are, you know, the new generation of horror writers, and they happen to grow up in my hometown. And so, so add to that, this guy that I booked when I was a student activities director at this small school in New Hampshire that I referenced, and one of the guys I booked was a guy named Raymond McNally. He was a Dracula expert. He wrote a book called In Search of Dracula.
Wow.
And in fact, the 2 years that I worked at this school in New Hampshire, the only program I ever missed that I couldn't attend was when he came up from Boston College to speak at the college. And years later, when I called him to say, hey, I'm thinking of starting an agency, would you let me represent you? He said, I'll never forget you, because I got a kick out of the fact that when I was coming to your college, it was Dracula meets the Wolfman. So, you know, so he remembered me because of that. But I hadn't met him face to face at that point in time. So right out of the gate, I represented these horror writers. I represented this Dracula expert, and I always remembered somebody saying to me that there's power in threes. So I went out of my way to find one other person that kind of fit into this sort of genre of horror and the macabre, and I found a storyteller, a guy to do scary stories, and I immediately started marketing these 3 programs to college campuses all over the place for Halloween. And before I knew it, I was I was booking a fair amount of activity through the Halloween season at college campuses. And one thing led to another, and other, there was a woman at Takeo Post who said, you've got to meet this woman from Monroe, Lorraine Warren, Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
called them up on the phone, and within a couple of years, I had this expanding roster of people that would go out for around the Halloween season. And that expanded into me
So
taking on
you
all
booked the
sorts
Warrens.
of...
I know about the Warrens. Yeah,
Yes. I booked the Warrens for about 18 or 19 years.
on college campuses.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like, so just to recap,
Yeah.
you had this idea,
Right.
and you just sort of called some people that you knew and tested it, and they said, sure, why not? And then you just went with it.
I did.
I mean, what made you think you could be successful? Just because they said, sure, be our agent? I'm just curious, because a lot of people have ideas, but they don't have whatever it is, the courage, the chutzpah to go out there and do it. What was that for you?
Well, to be brutally honest, I was a pretty crappy employee, and I got fired from a couple of jobs.
Well, that didn't work.
And I just really felt like I had to call my own shots and do things on my own terms. I was in my late 20s. I was single. I didn't have a mortgage. I wasn't married. No
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
It seemed like I just had this drive to say I got to do my own thing.
So low risk, you didn't have a lot of overhead.
Yeah.
What do you have to lose? You already got fired. Let's go for it.
Yeah, like bought a computer. I was kind of working out of my bedroom for a while, like wake up in the morning, and kind of roll next to my desk and get on the phone. And I just sort of had a knack for getting on the phone and selling these various wacky programs to colleges. And the first couple of years was a little tough, but by probably about the fourth year or so, I was turning a decent profit. And then as I started moving in, expanding the roster, I started taking on some really interesting, what you would call maybe like a traditional diversity or multicultural program for a college campus. So we represent currently everything from this fantastic woman out of the D.C. area who's a Holocaust survivor, to a guy named Joseph Severenzi, who is a survivor of the Rwandan genocide,
Wow.
to a gentleman named Daryl Davis, who's an African-American out of the Baltimore area who got to know the Klan really well, and he wrote a book about the Klan. He was invited to Klan rallies.
Whoa.
And during his lectures, he actually holds up a collection of robes and hoods from these Klan members that got out of the Klan as a result of their friendship with this black man. Just like some really
Wow.
amazing, powerful stories. So currently, we have about 120 programs that we represent. And
So you start out in horror, and you went from horror to
almost,
a whole range of things.
yeah. Although the Holocaust and
Yeah, I
Rwandan
was gonna say,
genocide
that's
are
kind of
definitely real life
horror.
horrors. So
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, we have this incredibly well-versed roster. We actually, it's a college-based agency. We're considered to be a little edgy. We're not all that conservative in our approach. We're known for our debates. We've packaged debates on everything from legalization of marijuana to gun control to pornography to assisted suicide to intelligent design versus evolution. We've delved into about a dozen different topical areas where we actually have two people show up on college campuses and debate.
Oh,
And
interesting.
those have been really successful as well.
So it sounds like, you have the perfect form for this in terms of the colleges and universities around the country being the cultural meccas to
Exactly.
really experiment with all venues.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's the time in one's life when they, to go away to college and have an opportunity to have all sorts of ideas presented and have the ability to evaluate and learn and have your ideas and beliefs challenged. I think that's the time to do it.
So how do you go about finding your speakers? At first it sounded like you just sort of talked to people you knew, you had a Rolodex. How has it sort of evolved and grown? You're not the most shy guy in the world.
No, I'm
sure
not so shy. Well, I'm a bit of a cultural sponge. I go to bookstores and I rifle through book sections, and I'm always like waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking we need a speaker to talk about this. And I see things in the New York Times. I see writers profiled all the time in the New York Times and things on television. So it evolves over a period of time. And, since we've been in business for about 19 years, we have a reputation, so we have speakers that call upon us, or maybe a writer or a college professor that has a certain area of expertise that might have somebody that we already represent, and they meet them at a professional conference, and just start talking. You know, I really need an agent. I'm like, call my agent. You know, he's a good guy. So we get solicitations weekly from people that want us to represent them.
Oh, that's great. So
Mhm.
it's just really snowballed from word of mouth and
Yeah.
delivering on good programs, it sounds like.
Hmm. I still think, though, the most successful programs that we've represented have come from me just really being excited about it. You know, just really, a lot of things from popular culture we do really well with. We represented the directors of the Blair Witch Project.
Oh,
right, when
really?
they made the cover of
Yeah.
Time magazine or Newsweek magazine.
Yeah.
And we booked a short-lived lecture tour for them. We had a 2.5, 3-year run representing cast of Napoleon Dynamite, which was just a
Oh, wow.
huge mega hit on college campuses. We represent the Mythbusters
Oh, wow.
exclusively for the college market. We just booked Mike Rowe a couple of nights ago. He's the host of Discovery Channel's Dirty Jobs. So we have a lot of people from TV and film that we currently work with as well.
So what was, do you get a chance to see the shows a lot, or are you just sort of behind the scenes, or do you actually go on campus at all?
You know, I'll go on a college campus if it's, you know, within 100 miles of home now, because obviously it's just you know, we book, you know, 400 or 500 dates a year probably. So occasionally something really extraordinary comes up, and you know, I have an opportunity to go to, you know, San Diego or some
Right.
cool destination to see a great speaker. I mean, we've represented Nobel Prize winners and you know, people like Maya Angelou. We've, you know, worked with over the years some really great people. So occasionally when those things come up, we'll travel just to have the experience of sort of servicing the event. And
So what's one of
acting
your
as a-
favorites?
Over the years,
Yeah.
a favorite that I've personally
Yeah,
seen? Oh
yeah.
my gosh, great question. That's a really great question. I've really liked some of the people that aren't necessarily famous. I've been really moved by Nessie Godin, the woman who I referenced before, who is a Holocaust survivor. She just turned 80, and her story is so powerful, and her message is so positive and so uplifting.
Oh, wow.
And she just touches everybody in the audience. I always love seeing her speak. She's been a favorite of mine.
Okay. So you've been successful at this business. What would you attribute that success to?
Well, definitely hard work, and I think I have a knack for getting on the phone and talking to various college professors and writers and media and television personalities, people that I've never met before, and to some extent winning their trust that I'm a relatively intelligent person and I've got an idea, and I think I'm pretty good at of sort of framing over the phone what it is that I intend to do without sounding like a used car salesman.
Right.
If there's any used car salesman watching, I apologize for the metaphor, but you know, just in general, I just think I come across as being honest, and I think I manage people pretty well. I have currently 5 employees, and I'm definitely, it's very important to me that my employees have satisfying work, and you know, I try to really motivate them to be successful as well. So I have some really great employees that have certainly helped me grow the business over the years.
So what are some of the challenges you've had, and how have you addressed them? So now you've had 5 people working for you, so obviously you've grown, and you said you book 500 dates a year.
Challenges over the years, despite the fact that I just mentioned that I think I'm a pretty good employer, and my employees by and large have a good work experience. There's still turnover, you know, and when you haven't, you know, the people that sell these programs are booking agents, and when they become trained and well-versed and they start selling on the phone, it's hard to have them pick up and leave for one reason or another, and have to hire and weed through applications and train, and you lose ground that way. That can be frustrating. And it is a weird animal selling these speakers. I mean, somebody coming into the job now, they have to quickly get up to speed to, you know, be conversant over the phone on over 100 programs now, and everything is very different, and there's a lot of nuanced sorts of conversations to have with the various college buyers. So that's been somewhat frustrating. I've had some issues with some commercial landlords.
Oh,
and some lease issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, what can be really frustrating when you're booking, say, a celebrity or somebody in film, and you work really hard to put a tour together for them, and then some kind of a deal happens, and they go, hey man, you got to cancel the whole tour because I got a film to do or something like that. So sometimes the high-profile people can be the hardest to rely on, because speaking is really like an icing on the cake thing for them.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
They don't really need the money. They
Yeah.
don't really need to go out and
Sort of
get
a fun thing.
It's a fun thing.
Yeah.
And so that can be tough because, you know, sometimes you look at like losing, you know, $10,000, $20,000, you know,
Yeah.
in a flash of a, you know. so.
Yeah, yeah, so managing that and wearing a lot of hats. So you got this business off the ground, it's successful, and then, was it just a couple of years ago, you bought another business?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, I went into business with my best friend.
They say not to do that. How's it?
Yeah, well, you know, I thought we talked about that.
How's that working?
It's great. We're still, I think we're still best friends. I'm pretty sure. But you know, he's a really great guy. He's a really mellow guy, and I just knew it would work because we just had such a great friendship. And we even had the whole discussion about what happens.
Yeah.
We can't afford to let business get in the way of our friendship,
Right,
and
right.
so we sort of talked about all these exit strategies, you know. And for me, it was kind of
That's
like
great.
kind of a fun investment. So we bought a coffee house together. It was an existing coffee house in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, called Mocha. It was started by a young man who was about 24 years of age, and he sold it and went
Wow,
into some
that's
real
impressive.
estate. Yeah, and I always just loved the place. It's right in Sandy Hook Center. It's right on the Putatuck River, and it's just a beautiful environment, a great place. And so my friend Rob basically runs it, and you know, he's on salary. He does all the day-to-day, and I'm just kind of like the guy in the background, just kind of hoping to.
So is that sort of related, because I think of coffee house and I think of college campuses, it seems like it's sort of a related business.
Well, it sort of is, and we have you know, entertainment on the weekends.
Yeah,
So I still
yeah.
feel like
You're still
you know,
booking people.
Yeah. Well, you know what's really cool for me is all these years of being on the phones, talking to people from all over the country. I started really missing the FaceTime, you know, the eye contact.
Yeah,
So it was cool for me to walk into Mocha and be like, hey, how you doing? Let me buy you a coffee. You know, hey, that's
So you can actually see
goes
people.
on me. You know,
Right.
you know, I thought it was like the cool guy, you know. But yeah, it really was fun, and there are some mornings, like, you know, spring days where I stop there on my way into work, and I just don't even want to leave the deck. It's just a beautiful setting, and you know, it's a great environment. So it's a coffee house. There's art and there's music and there's assorted food, and it's been fun, and it's had its own challenges, and certainly I'm sort of anticipating you're going to ask me for this business has its own sets of challenges.
Yeah, because it's a very
but
different kind of business, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So this
Yeah.
business is
Yeah.
being clearly affected by the recession,
Yeah.
whereas the college booking business, not as much.
Not as much.
Not as much. I think that the problem is you end up seeing things like people that put advice in the newspapers, you know, like you know, when the economy gets bad, here's the 10 things you can do to save money.
Right.
Rule number
Don't go
one
to
is
coffee shops.
don't go to coffee shops.
Right.
You know, make your
Make
Maxwell
coffee
house
at
in the
home.
morning.
Yeah.
So I think people are quick to give up the $3.50 or the $4 latte, et cetera, et cetera. Our customers are great though, and they're people that really enjoy the space and they stay a long time. It's not, you know, a Dunkin' Donuts kind of model. It's a real coffee house. People enjoy hanging out there. So it's been fun.
Now you have yet a third business. You're a busy guy.
I do.
So when did you start this business, and how did you come to this one, and how's that running for you?
Well, the third business is clearly the strangest one of them all, and it's
Strange.
it's been the one that has caused me by far the most stress.
Really?
By far, because it's the one that's also caused me to like lose sleep and wake up and go, why? Who am I to even think I can pull this off, kind of thing, you know? So here's what happened about I don't know, 6 years ago. I read an article in the New York Times by a pretty well-known digital compositing photographer artist named Nancy Burson, and she was commissioned right around the millennium to find a way to artistically change people's races, to have people have the experience of seeing themselves as a different race, and in the spirit of the millennium being ushered in, the people that sort of commissioned her to do it, it was kind of like a prayer for peace and equality, and let's move.
And it's called the Human Race
It's
Machine.
called the Human Race Machine.
Yeah.
So I read about this in the New York Times, and I called this woman, this artist, and said, hey, you know, I've got this business. I'm booking a lot of diversity programs in the college campuses. I think college students are going to really like this. This is cool. One thing led to another. I started booking out her machines. Her machines started falling apart. They didn't.
I know
they
they almost
hold
look
up.
like could you show me a picture of them? They almost look like sort of little photo machines where you get your picture taken in the mall.
Yeah,
they kind of look like that.
It's sort of like kiosks
Yeah,
or
kiosks,
photo
that's the word,
booths
yeah.
or whatever. Yeah. Well, the machines that she only had a couple of them built, and they were installed more permanently in a couple of choice museums. And they didn't really have to hold up to the rigors of excess shipping. But once they started booking them,
Yeah.
in Peoria, Illinois, and California, and Florida, and we had a whole bunch of issues. So the thing started falling apart. So I borrowed some money, and I fabricated new machines. They're made out of steel and aluminum, so they really hold up well. I had these fantastic cases made. I now own 8 of these machines, and we currently book them all over colleges and universities. They're still called the Human Race Machine. And
So how do people really
students-
use this machine? So they go in, they get a picture of themselves looking, and it comes out looking like different races, and
Well, you take your picture,
yeah.
right? So there's a monitor, and there's a camera on the top, and you're sitting there with a little joystick, and you got a chair, and big thing in back of you, and you're kind of in this like little pod, and you take your picture, and then you map your face. And there's a way to map your face that shows you how to do it. Once you map your face, then there's this whole sort of compositing thing that happens, and you can see yourself represented as one of six different races, I believe. 6, I believe. And
What was your experience when you first did it?
I thought it was pretty remarkable.
Like when you saw yourself?
Yeah, it's a cool
That's really
experience.
wild.
It is a wild experience. When it works well, and we've had uneven results, depending on how well you garbage in, garbage out. If you take a really good picture and you map
Not
it
that
well,
anybody's face is
you have good
garbage.
results. No,
No one's
no
face is
garbage, no
garbage.
garbage. But sometimes people, they
Just
take,
don't do
yeah,
the
they don't line their eyes
tech-
up right.
right,
They don't, so,
right.
So you end up looking like some weird freak monkey or something like that. But when you take your picture really well and you really take your time, you're meticulous, the results can be stunning. And also there's something about the software where it seems to give really great results with certain skin tones, like Mediterranean, olive.
Oh, wow.
Skin tones seem to work really well. So I've seen women, maybe Hispanic women or something like that have just the most amazing results, and they look like these gorgeous Asian women. And when it works really well, you totally see yourself in these pictures. So it's you, but not you.
What kind of feedback
And-
have you gotten from people on this? It sounds
incredibly
like it could be an
mixed.
incredibly
Incredibly mixed.
Mixed,
Yeah.
Either
Because
they love it, they hate it, they...
it's been all over the place.
Yeah.
It's been, we love it, we hate it, we think it's a joke, we think this is the most amazing thing ever. It's been everything in between.
Clearly it touches people.
It touches people, but race is also a strangely loaded thing. I mean,
Yeah.
our sort of overarching message with the Human Race Machine is that there's no genetic basis for race. There's no real scientific genetic basis for this thing we call race. It's very much socially constructed, and there's only one race, the human race. So it's definitely still, we still carry through to all the college campuses this message, this sort of prayer for peace and equality. This idea that we're all humans. We're the human race. So I feel really good about my participation in that. But again, it's been fraught with troubles and machines
It sounds like a
breaking
lot of
down.
logistics.
A lot of logistics.
In terms of the product, but the actual, you're really keen on the message,
I
but the
really
actual
am.
business logistics around shipping it and everything has been a little bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, just things breaking down and damage and shipping, all that stuff that I'm not used to in my other business. So that's been very challenging for me.
Because the first time you're actually dealing with a product.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yep.
So you've been at this entrepreneurship, if you will, starting
I'll take it.
businesses. I know you don't like the word entrepreneur, but
Well, so what
starting
entrepreneur.
businesses for the last almost 20 years now,
Mm-hmm.
right? 20 plus. What kind of kernels or words of wisdom would you have for people thinking about starting their own businesses and also in the current climate?
Climate aside, I'm a champion of people starting their own businesses and pursuing their dreams and taking a chance and doing something where they can control their own destiny, control their own, just their own work day. I think freedom to have your own time is just the greatest gift in my lifetime. So when I see people that are excited or have an idea and think that they could maybe start a business with this idea they're excited about, I always go out of my way try to tell them it's a great idea, it's perfectly doable, you really should give it a try, you have nothing to lose. And I try to share with them some of the joys that have come in my life from having this freedom and, you know, being sort of
So
the
optimism.
architect of my own destiny. or
Yeah,
whatever, I don't know,
exactly.
so,
Yeah. Charting your own course. So the optimism. What would you say to those folks who are, yeah, I've got a great idea, but sort of the downside or worried about, because it's a risk, the financial risk.
Absolutely.
It paid off for you.
Mhm.
And you were young and adventurous, let's
Right.
say.
Right.
But what would you say to sort of some of the risk side to folks?
Yeah, I mean, you know, sure, and I do assess it very differently when you're meeting someone who's like 25
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
somebody who, you know,
Yeah.
is 45 and they're trying to get out of, you know, the corporate handcuffs or whatever they call that, and they're, you know, they got
Right.
3 kids and the thing. It's hard to say, no, you should just, you know, go do your own thing.
Right, exactly.
You'll make a profit in 8 years, you know. So it is hard. It is hard to give advice. And I do know that, you know, this economy thing, I think really psychologically gets you know, is a real barrier for a lot of people, and to some extent, you know, I might suggest, I don't know how real it really is, you know, because I've had extensive conversations with other friends of mine who own their own businesses or are in sales, and several of them just have the absolute best outlook on what's going on right now.
Yeah,
That, you know,
yeah.
this is really this kind of environment's going to really, you know, separate the winners from the losers.
Well, it also sounds
and-
like what
yeah.
business you're in, and this could be the best of times, the worst of times. It depends on your perspective. It depends on, you said so yourself, with some of your businesses are not really affected by the recession.
Right, exactly.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
Like one is, one isn't, and the other sounds like it's, you know, maybe not really.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a combination of people's perspectives and what their business is and how they're looking at it.
Yes, true. I will say one more thing. I did for about a year and a half get some business coaching, and it was a really fantastic thing that I did. And you know, business coaching just kind of deals with the idea that, you know, when you start a business, you're really enthusiastic and you're really good at something very specialized. But once you get in and start having success, you know, maybe 3-4 years in, you start bringing in employees.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother level of, you know, skills that start coming into the equation that you might have
Yeah.
to admit you're not necessarily good at. You're not
Yeah.
necessarily good at
Yeah.
training people,
So,
et cetera.
so if folks were interested in talking to you further, where could they reach you at?
Gosh, anybody can email me at, can I give my email address?
Yeah.
Scott, Scott, at wolfmanproductions.com.
Okay.
And the website's wolfmanproductions.com for the college booking agency. So.
Okay.
All right?
Great. Thanks so much for
Thank
being on the
you.
show, Scott.
Thanks. Thanks.
I'm Susan Shaner. Until next time with Community Forum. Thank you for joining us.